Greetings to all of you at the Humus Heritage family. Welcome back to our channel where we believe that the best gardening secrets are often found by looking back to what our ancestors knew all along. If you've ever felt underwhelmed by your potato harvest, scratched your head, wondering why your raised beds didn't produce what you expected, or simply wanted to unlock the true potential of your growing space, this guide is for you. Today, we're resurrecting a forgotten technique that can transform your potato beds from modest producers into cornucopias of golden, starchy treasure. The yield myth. What you're doing wrong. Most of us have been taught the conventional hilling method, the practice of mounding soil around the base of growing potato plants as they shoot upward. It's been the standard advice for generations, and yes, it works. But here's the truth that few gardeners dare to speak aloud. Hilling in a raised bed is far less efficient than the method our great-grandparents used, and it's certainly not optimized for the unique conditions that raised beds provide. When you hill in a traditional garden row, you're working with the limitations of ground-level planting. Space is constrained, and you can only add soil so high before it becomes impractical. In a raised bed, however, we have a distinct advantage: vertical space. Yet most gardeners squander this precious advantage by planting their potatoes the same way they would in the ground, using the same shallow hilling techniques. This approach leaves vast potential untapped, leaving pounds of potatoes unharvested beneath beds that could have produced so much more. The method we're about to share doesn't ask you to work harder or longer. Instead, it asks you to work smarter by tapping into a sequential, layered approach that multiplies your growing zones and dramatically increases your yield. This is the ancient wisdom we've forgotten, the technique that allowed gardeners of centuries past to feed their families abundantly from remarkably small spaces. Rediscovering ancient wisdom. The layering method. The principle behind this ancient yield trick is elegantly simple. Potatoes produce tubers along their buried stems. The deeper and longer those stems are buried, the more potatoes they produce. Rather than planting all your seed potatoes at once at the bottom of your bed and simply mounding soil as they grow, the layering method harnesses the potato plant's innate ability to develop new roots and new potatoes at multiple levels simultaneously. This technique works exceptionally well in raised beds because raised beds are designed to be deep, well-draining, and manageable. They provide the perfect environment for creating what we might call rooting layers, distinct zones within your bed where seed potatoes are strategically placed at different times and heights, each one destined to produce a full crop of underground tubers. As each layer grows upward, you add another layer above it, creating a vertical potato factory that produces bountifully in ways a traditional garden row never could. Ancient gardeners understood that soil depth equaled potato abundance, and they developed methods to maximize that depth without the heavy labor of constantly digging and hilling. The raised bed is the modern answer to their ancient problem, and the layering method is the technique that brings their wisdom into our contemporary gardens. Alright, let's walk through the layering method step by step. You want to start by preparing your raised bed with that fluffy, well-draining soil that potatoes absolutely love. Your bed should be at least 18 inches deep though. Honestly, 24 inches is even better for this approach. That depth is really crucial because it lets you build up multiple planting layers as the season moves along. Start your first layer in early spring, as soon as your soil temperature reaches about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Go ahead and create a shallow trench just 3 to 4 inches deep right at the bottom of your bed. Place your seed potatoes, small and whole, or cut into pieces with several sprouts, in this trench, spacing them 12 inches apart with the eyes facing up. Then, cover them with just 2 inches of that precious compost and soil. And hey, don't bury them too deep just yet. This is where most gardeners slip up with the usual hilling method. As your first layer of potatoes starts to sprout and poke up above the soil, here's where the real magic begins. Instead of just mounding soil around those growing plants, you're actually going to add a whole new layer of seed potatoes on top. Once your first layer plants are about 6 inches tall, create another shallow trench about 6 inches higher up in your bed. Plant a second layer of seed potatoes in this new trench, spacing them just like before, and cover them with 2 to 3 inches of soil and compost. The crucial thing here is making sure these new seed potatoes are resting directly above empty space, not right on top of the lower plants themselves. As the season goes on, and both layers grow, just keep building up this sequential layering. Your first layer potatoes will keep developing underground, while your second layer is now sprouting upward. Once the second layer gets to about 6 inches in height, You can add a third layer, if your bed is deep enough, of course. This creates a truly stratified bed, where potatoes at different stages are growing at different depths and heights all at once. Throughout this whole process, you'll want to water deeply and consistently, about 1 inch per week. The key is making sure that moisture reaches all your layers. This is where raised beds really shine. They hold water more evenly than ground-level rows, so every layer gets that consistent hydration without becoming waterlogged. The benefits here are just, well, beyond belief. The layering method doesn't just boost your yield, it honestly transforms your entire growing experience. By spreading out your plantings over several weeks and creating distinct rooting zones, you're actually extending your harvest season. While traditional methods concentrate all your potatoes at just one depth, layering spreads them out across a 12 to 18-inch vertical span. That means you can start harvesting new potatoes earlier and keep on harvesting for longer. The nutrient availability in a layered system is really something else. Each new layer brings in fresh, organic matter and amended compost, making sure the soil around every layer is just packed with nutrients and perfectly structured. Unlike a single dense planting, where the soil gets depleted as the season goes on, your layered system keeps fertility consistent throughout the whole growing period. Disease and pest resistance improve a lot with this method too. Potato scab and other soil-borne diseases tend to spread through dense clusters of underground stems. By spacing out your potatoes across multiple layers with some breathing room, you really cut down on the risk of disease spreading. Plus, every time you add fresh, disease-free soil and compost, you're introducing beneficial microorganisms that help suppress the bad guys. The layering method also gives you some solid protection against late spring frosts. While your first layer is maturing deep underground and staying safe, any new layers you plant in May aren't affected by those surprise cold snaps. The soil naturally insulates those developing sprouts, and when harvest time rolls around in late summer and early fall, get ready for an abundance that'll honestly surprise you. With this layering method, experienced gardeners routinely see yields that are 40 to 60% higher than with conventional hilling in the same size bed. Some folks even report bigger jumps than that. You'll be harvesting potatoes from 3 distinct layers, each one a full crop, from the same space that used to give you just a single modest harvest. For this method, fingerling varieties like Austrian Crescent and waxy potatoes such as Red Norland really excel, since they produce like crazy at multiple depths. Yukon Golds are another great choice, and those colored varieties can make your harvest downright beautiful. Choose your seed potatoes carefully from reputable suppliers who specialize in disease-free stock. This is even more important when you're building up multiple layers of growth. So, here's your call to action. As we wrap up. This spring, give the layering method a try in just one of your raised beds. Keep track of your results, compare them to your traditional beds, and see the transformation for yourself. Then, come back and share your harvest with our community. Don't forget to subscribe to the Humus Heritage channel to stay up to date with more forgotten techniques and gardening wisdom that can totally change your growing space. Together, we're rediscovering the abundance that our ancestors once took for granted, one garden bed at a time.